Sadly, we are seeing some big losses in some real estate situations in Ontario. Just ordinary residential real estate for ordinary people, but the big change in property values and interest rates just went against them over the last 2 years and frankly crushed. I mean, in some ways, these are life-altering changes for some borrowers, for some clients of ours, for people that we do work with. Let me describe it. So somebody buys a pre-construction condominium, freehold condominium back in 2022, really at sort of the peak around the first quarter of 2022, maybe $1.8 million. It's a very nice property. Very well appointed. We get an appraisal back today because it takes 18 months. You buy it pre-construction. It takes 18 to 20 months, depending on how everything's working out, to get to completion. And 22 months later, the market has changed completely, both the case of interest rates and maybe just sort of true over-exuberance, like really big FOMO and wild expectations in 2022, the first quarter of 2022, coming off the unbelievable year of 2021 in Ontario real estate. And we're ending up with appraisals of around 1.15, a couple of different appraisals, 1.15. So that's purchased for 1.8. That's the purchase contract, like $450,000 worth of deposits given, and it's worth $750,000 less. Because that's just where the market is. Now, that's just devastating. Turns out it's devastating for everybody in the project because the builder is actually willing to delay closing to see if there's anything good happens in the market. Now, when a builder is willing to delay closing when they have all the pressure of their own financing on top of them, it sounds to me like every single condo in the whole project is in trouble. Like every single person who bought is saying exactly the same thing. So that's a disaster. And if it ends up being this disaster, if these people are actually forced to walk away from this because they simply can't afford to make the transaction happen, that's really devastating. That's a devastating loss because it may even result in a lawsuit later and try to recover by the builder, and just is a complete disaster for everybody. So that's one example. We have others. We have examples of people who've, in the frenzy of 2021, bid single-family detached up in the farthest reaches of Pickering and the distant and the outskirts of Cambridge and halfway to Barrie, and big, chasing multiple bids on these single-family detached properties. And then something happens in their lives, like some really disastrous stuff, like a death in the family, like a marriage breakdown, like a cataclysmic job loss, health problems. When we look at these situations with people who just simply have to sell these highly bid up properties, they're coming in like 20-25% less today in 2024 than they were back in 2021, because that was really apex pricing in Ontario. And it's disastrous. Like it's people taking, like, all of the equity in their home is wiped out. All of it's wiped out. I mean, they have to go somewhere and rent because they're getting virtually nothing. They put $800,000, $900,000, $500,000 down payment on these properties, and they're walking away with $25,000 or $50,000, and they can't purchase another property. They just, again, these are people who were forced by personal circumstances to make some kind of life decision. Something happened. Something very bad happened in their lives, and they had to get out of that home. They couldn't continue for a variety of different reasons. And that's when, and we're not saying there's a ton of them. There's not thousands upon thousands of them, but our office sees them happen. We see it happen. We watch it in real time. And it's a tragic disaster for these people. What else goes wrong? Well, we're faced today with a really, I don't know, it's almost a universal disaster in the condominium assignment market. Just so you understand it, people buy condominiums years ago. Their idea was, we will now sell it through assignment. We don't plan on ever actually closing. We're buying a condominium for $950,000. We think it's a great property. It takes the 5 years to get built. Like 950,000 5 years ago. I mean, that was a pretty nice condo. But anyway, it gets finished. Then all of a sudden, there's nobody wants to take it off their hands. Nobody wants to say, well, I think the condo is now worth 1.2 million, so I'm happy to give you $1 million or $1.5 million for your $950,000 contract. We're happy to do that. There's nobody who's happy to do that. Like, nobody wants to do that. And these people are then faced with having to close. We've got to close on this condo. We've got to come up with the mortgage. We've got to put in even more down payment and more money to cover closing costs. And they can't. Like, the only people who might give them a mortgage is a private lender, and it might not be enough. And they can't possibly carry the mortgage at private lending rates in the 9% range. I mean, it's a $2,000 a month loss if they find somebody to rent it. So it's an unmitigated disaster. Now, again, not everybody, but we're going to see more of those coming up in the course of 2024. Yes, interest rates will come down, but they won't come down far enough to suddenly fix all of the situations I just described. So we're going to see some more of them. And please, 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 everybody, let's not just say, well, it's their own fault, okay? Just do the right thing and think, there, but for the grace of God, go I.